Welcome to part 2 of the ego's world of denial and projection, and we'll be continuing the theme of denial in this part. We left off last time looking how difficult it was for the ego to surrender. In fact, it doesn't want to surrender, and as we believe in the ego, then we imprison ourselves here until we decide to change the way we look at the world, to undo our denial and take our projections back and learn forgiveness. And this has taken a long time, but there is hope. The Course says, tolerance for pain may be high, but it's not without limit. Eventually, everyone begins to recognize, however dimly, that there must be a better way. As this recognition becomes more firmly established, it becomes a turning point. This is text, chapter 2, section 3, paragraph 3. So the Course guarantees that we will all wake up, but it's up to us how long it takes, and it could take a very long time if we wish it. There's this poignant line in the workbook, how long, O Holy Son of God, how long? Well, as long as we want to, it seems. When we separated from God, if we had turned to the guidance of the Holy Spirit in our split mind, He would have told us to laugh gently at the ego's insane thoughts of separation and autonomy. But already our allegiance and belief in the ego was too strong. The ego's counsel made us afraid of the Holy Spirit. For was He not of God? And look what we had done to God's kingdom. Now the Holy Spirit appears to be God's general, waiting to grab us by the scruff of the neck if He can get hold of us and take us back for our just punishment. So we're left with just listening to the ego. We've destroyed the unity of heaven, stolen God's creative power, and left. In our madness, we now believe God was angry with us and demanded vengeance and sacrifice from us. This is the origin of all the passages in the Bible which depict an avenging and angry Father who is out for our blood. No wonder we become afraid of the Holy Spirit in our mind. He was God's agent and not to be trusted. In our terror, we could only turn to the ego and ask for its help in our fear of God's justified punishment of us. The ego's reply, as it always is, was to deny and project our guilt onto a non-existent world. The ego has created an illusory problem, separation from God, and now proceeds to counsel us endlessly on how to solve it through denial and projection. Our ceaseless busyness, both material and spiritual, and given importance to the details of the ego's world of form, makes an excellent smokescreen to the presence of the Holy Spirit in our mind, that memory of God we carry with us, thus ensuring the survival of the ego. Our very first act was to deny that we even had this battle with God in the first place. The Manual for Teachers describes this first denial as follows. Forget the battle. Accept it as a fact and then forget it. Do not remember the impossible odds against you. Do not remember the immensity of, quote, the enemy, God. And do not think about your frailty in comparison. Accept your separation, but do not remember how it came about. Believe that you have won it, but do not retain the slightest memory of who your great opponent, in quotes, really is. That's from question 18 in the manual. This denial is so effective that we believe we have nothing to do with this world which we were born into. We're not responsible for what we find here and feel justified in blaming God, and our parents perhaps, when His creation does not work so well. But as we have seen, the world is not God's creation, but the miscreation of the ego. which carries its own thought system into every detail of our world. A creator only creates like itself, and God is eternal, so everything God creates is eternal, and there's nothing in this universe that is. Even our own solar system is middle-aged, and all life on all planets will be gone in about 5 billion years. This is the ego's thought system, not God's. But as we've seen, this world is not God's creation, but the miscreation of the ego, which carries its own thought system into every detail of our world. As the ego's thought system is based on differences, comparison, separation, judgment, attack, defense, murder, etc., so must it be reflected in the world. For as the Course states, quote, ideas leave not their source. We've never left heaven. And their effects but seem to be apart from them. Text chapter 26, section 7, paragraph 4. So, every living being on this planet must murder in order to live. We must kill vegetables or animals to survive. The animal kingdom must constantly spend its time either killing some other life form or protecting itself from being killed. Kill or be killed is at the heart of the ego's thought system. The ego believing it has killed God and stolen his power. This thought system must in turn become projected out as the image of the ego's world. This world is literally the image of the thoughts in the ego's mind. It cannot be anything else. If it's on the film of projection, it must be on the screen. Therefore, it's pointless to change what is on the screen. We must change what is on the film. This is referring to our attitude on how we see things in the world. The Course asks us to, quote, seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. That's the introduction to chapter 21. Now, this doesn't mean you don't do things in the world or help things to be better. You can sign a petition, send money, or peacefully protest against what you see as clearly inappropriate. The line is really referring to getting angry about what's happening in the world. Anger is of the ego, involves projection, while compassion is of the spirit. He wants us to see what's going on in the world with compassion and not anger. I heard a story about Mother Teresa once, which illustrated this very well, I think. She'd gone to New York with her nuns, and they'd got a house there where they could help people who were homeless or sick. And the local charity group came round to say thank you and appreciate her. And they said, Mother Teresa, thank you so much for all the social work that you're doing. And she looked puzzled and said, what social work? Well, you're helping sick people and giving the homeless rooms. Don't tell me, she said, I'm doing social work. That's me I pick up out of the gutter. That's Jesus I pick up out of the gutter. There was no concept in her head that she was doing good works. If we have a splinter stuck in our thumb, we take it out. We're not doing social work on our thumb. So that's us that's hurting. And that's the way she saw it. She lived in oneness. She was helping herself. Of course, most of us are rather far from that realization. And the Course warns us not to deny our bodies and our experience in the world. There's a quote in the Course about denial that I like. Conflict must be resolved. It cannot be evaded, set aside, denied, disguised, seen somewhere else, called by another name, or hidden by deceit of any kind if it will be escaped. It must be seen exactly as it is, where it is thought to be, in the reality which has been given it. and with the purpose that the mind accorded it. For only then are its defences lifted, and the truth can shine upon it as it disappears. That's from Workbook Lesson 333. And there's a term that's been about for a while related to this. The term is spiritual bypassing. And there's a nice definition of it by Craig Holliday that I'll read out. Spiritual bypassing is the art or unconscious movement of using spiritual concepts, teachings, or experiences to deny, transcend, or ignore our human life. If left unchecked, the art of spiritual bypassing leaves us deeply divided in our spiritual and human self. We may have great spiritual insights and experiences, but if we are proficient at spiritually bypassing our human lives, we just may become deeply unintegrated, detached, and defended in our spiritual superego. The more we spiritually bypass our human lives, the greater the chance our shadow will haunt us, or cause trouble both in our human and spiritual experience. This reminds me of some of the horror stories I hear sometimes when Course in Miracles students misunderstand the teachings and particularly apply the metaphysics to what's going on in their lives instead of applying forgiveness and kindness and gentleness. One example was the first war in Iraq, and some were going around saying, "What war? Just a dream. There's no war. Nothing's really happening." I thought if I could just scoop them all up and take them to Iraq and put them in front of a Iraqi tank that's bearing down upon them, would they say, "What tank? It's just a dream"? They would, of course, be running very fast in the other direction. Another one is a Course in Miracles study group, and one of their members was dying of cancer in hospital, and they went to visit her. And they stood round in bed, and they chanted a phrase from the Course. "I'm not a body, I am free, I'm still as God created me," and invited her to rise up. Perhaps they were unaware that this was a rather potent ego attack on their friend, who really needed to be listened to, her hand held, her tears wiped, good pain medication. But obviously the group was afraid of death and cancer and denied it and projected it out onto her and wanted her to sort of exhibit a miracle that would make them feel okay. Some students have got the wrong idea, can even be seen at funerals just going around smiling, saying there is no death. And though that's true, when someone dies, there's many who grieve, and that really should be borne in mind. So I think as Course students, never forget to be kind and to be gentle, not lose our common sense. And to remember to apply the practical teachings of forgiveness to situations, not the metaphysical. Without the metaphysics, you won't understand the Course. They're not meant to be applied like that. So that brings us to the end of part 2. And in the last part, we'll look more deeply at projection. So thank you very much for listening, and I wish you well in your daily classroom of forgiveness. Thank you.